The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of Para-X, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
All these voices. All these voices. All these things you can't explain. All these painful memories. They keep haunting you and daunting me. It's just the ghost of you and me. It's just the smoke and gasoline. It's just the ghost of you and me. Of you and me.
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Staring into the Abyss. I am your host, horror author James Hershey Jr., and with me as always, my co-host, old boy James Ash. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing pretty good. How is everybody tonight?
Tonight's show is going to be fun. We are going to be talking about one of our favorite things, which is giants. And I have you a pretty crazy-ass article for tonight. You're going to like this. This article comes from UFOholic.com, and the headline is Giants in Suspended Animation Ready to Awaken, Whistleblower Claims. It was written by Steve. That's all it says, just Steve. No last name, just Steve. Just some dude named Steve wrote this. It was published on September 16th, 2015. So it's a little bit of an older article. I read it before, a long time ago. And I just came across it again, and I thought this would make a fun show to do and see what you guys think of it. So more than a century ago, a secret society discovered a cave hidden deep beneath the Earth's surface. Inside the cave were several ancient giants, alive, but in a state of suspended animation. We might think we know the truth about Earth's ancient history, but it isn't so. Whistleblower Corey Good claims to have spent 20 years enrolled in secret space programs and covert government operations. During this period, he witnessed a multitude of extremely bizarre events and visited places we never even knew existed. One of the most interesting of them was an underground chamber where ancient giants were being kept in suspended animation since times immemorial. According to Good, the chamber was constructed by the ancient builder race, and the hibernating giants were the last of their kind. Several of these giants were kept inside crystal pods, in a death-like state, but they were not dead. At the time of its disappearance, this civilization possessed technological capabilities that far surpass our own. The stasis chambers were a testament to their progress, as they employed crystal technology that allegedly altered the flow of time. 30,000 years could pass, but for the crystal capsule's occupant, it would only seem like 30 minutes. The technology to create and maintain time bubbles is something humans aspire to one day possess. But according to Good, it has been present on Earth for thousands of years. This ancient builder technology is so far beyond even what most of these 4th, 5th density ETs use that some of these beings want to get their hands on it. It's multi-dimensional technology. The underground cavern was no secret to the shadow government Good claimed to have worked for. In fact, it was discovered sometime during the 19th century. And this, what I'm about to read you, is a quote. It says, there was this one location that back in the 1800s even, people were going from certain, I guess people would call them Illuminati or other elite groups. They were going to visit this one area that was kind of like a grotto or an underground cave. It went up about 90 feet and it was covered. They had it coated in some sort of pitch black material. And there was an ancient script language that was around on the inside that they had mostly deciphered. There also were 3 sarcophagi in kind of a Y-shaped formation on the floor. In between the 3 sarcophagi was a cube-shaped pedestal holding a blue glowing crystal matrix with like a spider web connecting it to the 4 corners, suspending it. Good said this crystal was responsible for creating and maintaining the time bubble. The 3 giant caskets held 3 very tall beings, or large giant humans with reddish beards and pale white skin. And that is the end of this article. So as I said in the beginning, this is a crazy article. It is very interesting. Now, when you first hear the headline, Giants in Suspended Animation, Ready to Awaken, Whistleblower Claims, you think, okay, that's kind of out there. It's a little bit nuts. But you want to read on. You want to find out what the hell they're talking about because it's interesting, right? So as we go into this article, we are presented with secret societies. They talk about the Illuminati in here. They talk about the secret space program. They talk about covert government operations. So you're getting into a lot of different aspects of the paranormal and the conspiracy realm. They also talk about ancient technology and that this race of giants were technologically superior. Now you might ask yourself, okay, well you just read this article to me, so why are you telling me what's in it again? That doesn't make any sense. Well, I'm doing that because these are points that I kind of want to hit on as we go here. Because I think by the end of our conversation, this article, this idea, won't seem quite as crazy to you. You still might not believe it. That's up to you to decide whether you think it's true or not. But it won't seem so absolutely nuts as it does now. So let's start from the beginning. Giants. Do giants exist? Did giants exist? Is it possible that giants could be in suspended animation in some secret underground cave thing? Well, we know that giants existed, and there's evidence that they still exist today. We know this from the Bible in Genesis 6. We also know this in the Bible from the story of David and Goliath and many, many other stories. We have skeletal remains that have been found of giants. We have photographs. We have newspaper articles from back in time where they talk about finding the bones of giants. So there's a lot of evidence that giants did exist. So then we have to ask ourselves, do they still exist? If we know that they did, do they now? Well, we have evidence of them existing today as well. And I'm not just talking about like Andre the Giant and people like that. Although in one form that is a giant. But that's not the kind of giant they're talking about here. They're talking about the Nephilim. They're talking about the giants with 6 fingers on their hand and all of that. The biblical giants. Well, we have reports out of Afghanistan that there was a giant that they called the Kandahar giant, who was like 12 or 13 feet tall, had 6 fingers, reddish beard, attacked a platoon of American soldiers and was killed. We have video evidence from one of the riots that took place during the whole hands up, don't shoot thing of a giant in a SWAT uniform who was going in to try to stop them from burning down a pharmacy. So we have evidence today that giants still exist. Okay, so That part of this story is possible. Giants did exist, and I think they still do exist today. Okay, so they also talk about the secret space program and covert government operations. Well, we'll start with the covert government operations. Is that true? Do they exist? Absolutely, they exist. They're called Black Book projects. Everybody knows about that. There are a lot of different things that our government does and the governments around the world do that are top secret and classified and that they will never admit to, but they're kind of like well-known secrets that they're doing stuff they ain't supposed to be doing. So, covert government operations, 100% true. Secret space program. Now, that's something we have not discussed very much on Staring into the Abyss, and there's reasons for that. But I can tell you that I got to be careful here on how I say this. There are theories out there that there was a secret space program that existed off the books and behind the scenes. As of today, we have Space Force. But the theory states that Space Force had already existed for a while. That we actually have pilots who fly into space and they do missions and stuff like that. That we are in contact with other races of aliens, and that there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes having to do with that kind of thing that people don't know about. That is the theory of the secret space program. Is that true? Well, what I can say about that is I am not going to disagree with that theory whatsoever. I will neither confirm nor deny whether that theory is true, but I'm just going to say that I will not disagree with it. And I'm going to move on because I think that's wisest. So, we've covered covert government operations, we've covered secret space programs, we've covered giants. So far, that's 3 things in this article that are outside of the ordinary, that would make you think this is kind of a crazy article, but turns out not so much, because all of those things exist. The next thing they talk about is an underground chamber where the ancient giants were kept. And it says that they were kept in suspended animation. Okay? Let's start with underground chambers. Do they exist? Well, of course they do. But let's go a step further than that. Instead of just saying underground chambers, let's say underground facilities, because you need a lot of infrastructure to pull this off. You're going to need electric, you're going to need all kinds of stuff down there. It can't just be a cave. It has to be an underground facility of some sort where these things would be kept in suspended animation. So does something like that exist? The answer to that, yes, they do. It's a well-known secret that our government, and I'm sure governments all over the world, have underground facilities where the most powerful people in government and the elites will go to in case of an all-out nuclear war or something like that, some kind of planet-ending thing. They have a place to go underground to continue the species. Well-known fact. There's also a theory that there are underground military installations, such as maybe one out in the desert that you're not allowed to go to, where when you go into the property, you go through a big hangar door, and then you take an elevator down, and the whole facility is underground, and they do all kinds of things there. According to the theory, that place is Area 51. So is that true? Well, I'm not going to comment on whether that particular theory is true, but I'll tell you there are a lot of different military installations like that. that Area 51 is primarily used for experimental aircraft, but there are a lot of facilities that are doing that kind of work, secret work that is classified, and they do it underground. And there's a lot of them. It's not just one. So, underground facility, yes. Absolutely possible, absolutely exists. Suspended animation, is that possible? Not to known science. Not to public science. It's not possible. There are forms of it, such as cryogenics, where they freeze your body to try to bring you back sometime in the future where they have a cure for whatever disease you have. According to public knowledge, there is no actual suspended animation as of yet. And cryogenics is a pipe dream at best. It's not going to work. Because when you get unfrosted, you're dead. Period. I don't care if you were alive when they froze you, you're going to end up being dead. Because if you look at a cell is made up primarily of water. And if you ever looked at ice under a microscope and you see what the structure of that looks like when it's frozen, it is scary looking. It's all sharp, spiky protrusions. So chances are you're going to rupture the cell membrane and you're going to have a collapse on a cellular level when you freeze something like that. So I have my doubts whether they can actually bring you back from the deep freeze. Now, if you cool the body to a certain temperature, you could bring the body back. But to freeze it stiff and solid like they do, and then expect to bring it back, I don't think that's possible. But we'll see. Maybe they can figure it out. But to known science, there's no ability of suspended animation. But luckily in this article, it doesn't have to be known by us because they are claiming that these giants are the ones that put themselves in suspended animation. And they possess that technology because they had superior technology back then. That gets us into our next point, which is the ancient builder race with superior technology. Is there any truth to that? Well, there's a lot of theories, there's a lot of legends and myths that talk about ancient civilizations. I happen to think that we are not the first civilization of human beings that have reached a technological point to where we can do these amazing things. I think that we've done this many, many times before. I think what happens is mankind forms civilization, we get advanced, we discover technologies that make our life easier, and being what we are, we get pissed off at each other and end up in wars, and we always end up destroying everything. So then the people that are left that survive it, they don't know how to do anything. So you're back to kind of caveman days again. And they reproduce and keep making more babies, and time goes on, and eventually enough people figure out enough stuff to where you have civilization again. I think that's kind of the way it works. I think that explains places like Stonehenge. It explains how the pyramids were done. It explains a lot of things about these ancient megaliths and ancient structures that have been here that we still can't figure out how the hell they did it. I think that would explain it because they had superior technology to even what we have today. But they always end up killing themselves. And before you think that is a far-fetched theory, I want you to take a minute and take a little mental journey with me. Let's imagine today, all of us, okay? Me, old boy, you, your grandma, your mom, your dad, your sister, your brother, your cousin, whatever. Everybody you know, right? In this time, imagine there's a worldwide nuclear war or something to where everybody blows everybody up. Now, there's going to be survivors. Or say an asteroid hits or whatever. Insert world-ending disaster here, whatever it is that you want to put there. And it wipes out the majority of mankind. Now, in almost every case where something like this would happen, you're going to have survivors. There are going to be people who manage to live. So imagine you have, I don't know, a couple thousand people left. Whatever. What are the odds that those people that are left happen to know how to make society work? Now, you might fancy yourself as a pretty smart person. I myself believe I'm a fairly smart person. You might be listening right now on the radio in your car to this show. You might be watching this on YouTube, on your phone or your computer or TV or whatever. You might be listening to it live on the radio. If you did not have somebody that knew what they were doing, if it was just you, could you build whatever device you're listening to this show on yourself? Do you know how to make a radio? Do you know how a radio even works? Do you know how to make a cell phone, a computer, a TV? Do you know how to build any of these things? Do you know why they work? Do you know the theory behind why they work? How does my voice travel from my studio into that microphone and end up in your car or in your house, wherever you're listening at, whatever? How does that happen? Do you know how that works? Could you build it? When you go to your bathroom and you flip the switch and the lights come on, could you do that by yourself? Do you know how to wire your entire house? Do you know why it works? Do you know how to produce the electricity that flows into your home from the power lines that makes that light come on when you flip the switch? If you had to, could you go down to the electric company and make everything work? Make sure everything's turned on right, done right, everything. Do you know how to do any of that? Can you build a car? Do you know why it works? Can you manufacture the parts to fix the cars? Can you make gasoline? You can see very quickly that without the people that know those things, all of a sudden you go from being modern man or modern woman, the epitome of sophistication and civilization. Very quickly you turn into a barbarian. How long do you think it would take before you're out in the woods with a rifle trying to get some dinner? You're not going to be able to go to the store or to go to McDonald's or whatever anymore. So you're going to have to figure out how to get your own food. You're going to have to figure out how to grow your own food. Very quickly we become less civilized. Very quickly we go back to caveman days almost, at least the 1800s before electricity. We go back to candles. If you can even make, do you even know how to make a candle? And see, that's another point that I want to make, is how dangerous it is to not have knowledge of how to do a lot of these things. If that happened today and it was just me, I would be fine. Could I watch TV? No. Could I watch movies? No. Could I make my own electricity? Yes, if I had to, but feasibly not enough to do anything really important with. But I have the skill set to farm. I know how to do it. I have the skill set to hunt and to fish and to trap. I know how to do that. I have basic carpentry skills. I know how to build things. So I could survive. Now, could I survive like I do today? No. Could I go down to the electric company and get the lights on for everybody? maybe. If I had a manual, maybe. I know how electricity is produced. I know how it works. But I don't know all the switches I'd have to flip. I don't know all the dials I'd have to turn. I'd have to have a book to teach me how to do that. And I'm a pretty smart guy. That is what happened, I believe, over and over and over again. If some kind of catastrophe happens, it really matters who's left. Because if you don't have the real smart people and the real capable people that know how to do all these things, you're screwed. And you're going to be living like the caveman days again. And eventually you're going to run out of bullets. So it's going to be back to bow and arrow, or it's going to be run around the club trying to hit something over the head so you can eat dinner. So as far as the ancient builder race, I think that has some weight to it. I think that has happened before. Was it a race of giants? I don't know. I know that there was a race of giants. The Bible tells us that, and history tells us that from all over the world. All kinds of different legends talk about them. But I think that definitely mankind has existed multiple times in different civilizations. So they're talking about a capsule here that the giant is in, where they're able to slow down time to where they don't age or whatever. Is that true? I don't know. It seems far-fetched to me, but understand, if they did possess technology and an understanding of science that we don't have right yet, anything's really possible. Remember, science is magic to people that don't understand it. If you went to caveman days and pulled a lighter out of your pocket and flicked it, they would think you were a sorcerer. If you showed up with a cell phone and started playing videos on it, they wouldn't know what to think. They'd think it was magic, that you trapped somebody inside that little phone. They would have no idea what that is. Same thing here. If this technology actually exists and this is true, we have no understanding of it because we don't know anything about it. We're not there yet. At least publicly, we're not there yet. Who knows where we actually are, science-wise? Because there's cures to diseases and all kinds of stuff that aren't public, that people know about, the elite people know about, but it isn't public. Now that gets to my next point here, and my final point on this. It talks about secret societies. It talks about the Illuminati. Does that exist? Is that true? We know that the Illuminati exists. We know that there are secret societies such as the Freemasons, etc., etc., etc. There's a bunch of them. Skull and Bones, a lot of these guys, right? 100% they exist. So, do they run things? Well, let's look at it this way. When George W. Bush was running for president against John Kerry, there were many things they had in common. They were both men. They were both white men. They were both politicians. They were both wealthy. But another thing they had in common is they were both members of the Skull and Bones organization in college. And if you do a little digging, you'll find that a lot of our presidents were. So if you see that a lot of the presidents and a lot of the people in Congress and a lot of the rulers around the world all just happen to be members of some of these societies, a lot of our founders were Freemasons. What does that tell you? Now, I'm not claiming that they run the world, but I'm telling you that there are a lot of powerful people that belong to these societies. You can kind of make the connection on your own of what you believe to be true. Another thing I like to mention about the ancient civilization having access to and knowledge of technology and science that we don't have today. If you look at the giants, which is what we're talking about here in this article. The whole point of the giants, according to bits of Genesis and bits of the Bible and the book of Enoch, the whole point was to dilute the bloodline of Jesus, right? If they dilute that bloodline and screw it up, then Jesus can't fulfill the prophecy, so they win, right? That's a way oversimplification, but I'm not going to get all into that again. I've done that before on shows. It takes a long, long time to go through it all. So they would be in the evil column, if you're putting things on a side here. So let's go all the way back to the Garden of Eden and the serpent. The very first example of evil towards mankind. What did the serpent do? Now you might say, well, he tempted Eve to eat the apple. Yes, that's true. But how did he tempt Eve? He tempted Eve by offering knowledge that Eve did not possess. Look at the Tower of Babel. Everybody knows the Tower of Babel is when they were trying to build this tower up to reach the heavens. But one thing they don't talk about very often with the Tower of Babel was that at that time, all of mankind spoke the same language. And the reason they were building that tower to reach the heavens was as a way of boasting, of bragging. Look at us. Look how good we are. Look how amazing we are. Look at the technology that we possess. Look at what we're able to do. The Bible talks about that they had knowledge and they had superior technologies and they were boastful. So God tore down the tower. God spread the languages so that everybody had to speak different languages and all this stuff. So as you go through the Bible, you see knowledge being used over and over again to tempt mankind. So the reason I'm talking about this right now, I have a point here. And the point is that it is not beyond the realm of belief that an ancient race of giants would possess technology that is beyond our understanding. That makes sense, and there's evidence to back that up throughout the mythos of giants that is found in the book of Enoch, and it's found in the Bible, and it's found all over the place. So, is this article true? Are there giants in suspended animation in underground caverns somewhere? I have no idea. I've never heard of it before. I've never seen it myself. I've never spoken to anybody who has seen it themselves. So I cannot definitively say yes or no, it's true. Is it possible? Anything's possible, really, if you think about it. I mean, we've already went through all of the major things in this article that are kind of crazy, right? And we've kind of agreed that all of those things are real. They're not crazy, really. They're just not something that people talk about very often, and it's not a normal claim to make. Obviously, you're going to be skeptical of it. Is it true? Maybe. Maybe not. I doubt it. When I read this, I don't think that this is true, but it could be. It's interesting. So I'm going to throw over to Old Boy now and find out what he thinks about it. And let me know down in the comments of the video when I put it on YouTube what you guys think about it. Because to me, this is a very fascinating and interesting subject. Go ahead, brother.
Thank you, brother. Here's what I think. I think I'm going to go on with James with, I think it's probably just a story. It's just too, giants did exist. Illuminati does exist. Secret government experiments, we all know they exist, and the cavern could exist. Do I believe there might be some truth to it? There might be. There's always truth to every story, but I think it's been exaggerated. But maybe it's a story that's something else they're hiding, because we know how that goes. I don't really want to talk about government stuff in the Illuminati because there's reasons you don't do that, because they are real. And the government is real, and they do a lot of stuff that we're never going to know. We know that. The giants, the Nephilim, we know about that. We know they existed. What they were, up to the discussion. A lot of people think there's, either they're fallen from the fallen angels in the Bible. There's some people think they're from another planet, or they were aliens, whatever. But all I'm going to say is this is a very interesting story, because we've had stories about the giants in what is it in the I think it was in Philadelphia or something. They had that giant soldier, the Afghanistan red-haired giant, the one that attacked. This one's kind of weird though, where they're having them stored in ice. I don't believe that. I believe that maybe there's something that they got stored there. We don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe there's a giant they have and they made it. They genetically made it. That could be a possibility. They got some of this DNA from this other giant and they're making giants. Did you think about that? That this might be the possibility that they genetically made these ones. So think about that. That's one that we weren't talking about. Did they genetically make these from the ones they've killed and found? Because we know they existed and they've killed them, and there's been people are going to say, "Oh, you're crazy." Whatever you want to think, leave your comments like we always tell you guys. Leave your comments, because we were like, no, please don't argue, because we'll just block you. We don't even want to deal with it, because there's so much stuff going in the world anyway. We don't need to deal with all this right now. Just let us know what you think. Try to be nice about it and tell us what you think. Now, here's something I'm going to tell you guys. I think what happens is, with all these stories we hear with giants, werewolves, creatures, hidden caverns, bunkers, that they've been doing that for that'll be another thing I'll talk about in a minute. I think what we're forgetting is, I think some of these creatures existed, and I think what happens is we forgot what we are. Like Lord of the Rings and stuff like that, and giants and all the stories we hear. I think there's a lot of base truth on it. We just forgot what we were because of TV, movies, internet, video games, special effects. It's fake. Well, let me ask you a question. Giants are in the Bible. Giants are in the Quran. Giants are even in the Satanic Bible. Wiccan. Half monster beast, if you guys want to go, mutated beasts were in the Bible, were in Greek mythology, Odin mythology, I don't know how you would say, Nordic mythology, Buddhism, Wiccan, every religion. So why all of a sudden do they not exist? When they hide stuff. Remember that, guys. And again, like I said, it wouldn't matter if a 500-foot giant came tap dancing outside of your house. You're going to say it's not real, or they're going to say you're crazy, because this is how they work. I think that maybe if these giants were real and they found this, is they're doing genetic to bring them back. I think, like James said, we've been here numerous times. We don't know, what from what, or, he quotes the Bible, or we were also brought here by aliens, and there's proof on that they could have, made us. But I'm not going to get into that. But even in the Bible, you take a lot of the stories of what they talk about giants. And I think all these Bibles and all this are written documents of stuff that has happened in the past. And I think what happens is people over time has took certain parts and they made their own religion. But I think there's still some truth to all this. I think we used to live like this. Like we used to have wars with these creatures. And humans just realized how to make technology. We just got smarter. And he was saying science is magic. I believe that. I believe magic exists. I don't care what you say in almost every religion, they believe in magic, especially the one I believe in. Magic does exist. And I think people misunderstand science. I think there's a scientific to everything, even religion. But I think people misunderstand that there's magic in the world. They've been talking about it. Why would our ancestors talk about magic? I mean, if you look in the medieval time, they had Merlin and all this. Maybe they didn't exist, but they were from something exist. They knew existed then. And I do realize that we found out stuff later on didn't exist, or just like they think dinosaurs were original dragons or some kind of dragon. They just called that it was really a dinosaur. And I believe that. And I believe that we had monsters all the time. And I think they're smarter than what people think. And I know this is going to sound so crazy. You're out of your mind. They're smarter than you think. They rolled this world and they'll roll it again. And trust me on this, guys. They're going to roll it again. If they don't already. I do not trust anything right now, especially what goes on in any governments. I'm not a whack job. I'm not crazy. You never know what they're doing. I wouldn't put them past them to make a giant force. Think about that. If you made giants fight wars, you would never win. If they had certain armor, weapons, you wouldn't need soldiers anymore. They would run the world. I wouldn't put that as an experiment thing. Now, that's one thing I'm going to say. It might be an experiment. Do I think they have frozen giants they found? There's a possibility. I don't believe it. I think it's more of a story. But now there's more to that. Did they genetically find something and made an army out of it for later down the road? Because we already know they have bunkers. We all know that. We know about the end of the world. But did these things get made by men that actually think like we do? Have they already been using them? Think about it. We did a story about the military and them using these giants. So I would probably think that's the only possibility in my opinion. Do I think the article's real? Probably not. There may be a little bit of truth in it with some of the stuff James was saying. Bunkers and caverns and stuff like that. I believe that because look at Antarctica. There's all kinds of stuff there. All over the world, there's always something going on. So all I'm going to say is this. Believe whatever you want to believe, but study it. Go look this stuff up for us. Give us some more information. Maybe we can find more about this story. I don't believe it, that they have frozen giants ready to take over the world, but I give it about a 10% chance. Now, the genetic one, that's more of about a 30-40% chance. But I still think in the overall it's probably exaggerated or not true. So, I mean, this is why we do these stories, guys. I know we've been around for almost three and a half years, almost doing these shows. And we've I think this is our 170th show, guys. We've done about 170 shows, almost 200. I can't wait till we get our 200 show. That's going to be crazy. But to think that we've done so many of these shows already. We've given you guys so much information, like it or not like it or whatever you want to do. We have thousands of followers. We've been on radio shows. It doesn't matter. We are going to do this show when we have one follower left. We still love doing it. And one day, maybe in the future, when we're dead, they can listen to this in space and remember these guys. But, we're I'm not going to hold my breath. But, I would love to entertain you guys and do a show maybe more than once a week, 2 or 3 times a week. Kind of getting up there with coast to coast, I would love that. We would love to do that because we would get more people to realize what's going on in the world. The underground is what I call it. And we have a lot of stuff that's going on that people need to realize. We're not crazy. We've been studying this for years. I love this stuff. Giants, especially, always been one of my favorite subjects because I believe they existed. There's too many stories to prove they didn't. They prove they did, and when they're saying they didn't, there's so much stuff that they say doesn't exist when I know it does. I've seen things. I get it. There's always going to be fake and people optimistic on everything. But we got to start realizing there is stuff out there. And I think some of these books that were written, like the Lord of the Rings and stuff like that, there's some truth to them. Not 100%, but there's some truth to them. Like Hercules, there's these monsters existed. Giants, freaks, mutations, whatever they were, like Minotaurs, the Hydra, these things existed. The Leviathan, aka whatever you want to call it, flying dragon, aka the beast, the serpent, the one he was talking about in the Bible. That's why they got punished, the sliver on the ground, because he got Eve to eat the apple. But like me and James have had this argument about, did Eve really do the sin, or was it Adam? Because Adam knew better, and he still believed. He listened to Eve over God and took the apple anyway. And I think that's our curse with women in the first place. We got cursed. We always do some crazy stuff. Women get us in wars. They're wonderful. I'm married. I love my wife. So is James. But we all know how that goes. We do some crazy stuff over our women. And that's just how it's always been. They're just beautiful, gorgeous, smarter than us. And majority of the time, there's exceptions. They know what they're doing. They're not stupid creatures. They act, sometimes they might pretend to, but they know what they're doing. So with the whole apple part, yeah, I'm not surprised. Here, we're mad. We're not, we're smart creatures, but we know better, but we always make the bad decision, guys. And you can't blame us, It just happens. We were meant to be with them, but it's never going to be easy. That's why you see a lot of people always have issues, or even if they're soulmates, they get a divorce after 20 years because sometimes stuff doesn't work. And sometimes you're better friends, and then you'll find somebody else you're supposed to be with. It just happens. So, and don't get me wrong, I don't want anybody to get offended. Women are awesome. Men are awesome. We complement ourselves when we're together. There's no one better. We're never supposed to look where we're equal. And not to get into that, but I was just saying, but these giants, I do exist. They exist. Now the story's probably, I don't believe it, but there's a possibility. What I was saying, maybe with their engineering an army, but I don't believe there's frozen. But I believe there's giants somewhere, or they're coming, but not this story. I think this is a fabricated story of something that somebody wanted to write, and now we're talking about it and doing a show about it. So that's all I got to say, James. There you go. I didn't have too much to say about it.
My theory on why Adam ate the apple when Eve gave it to him was because Eve was naked. That's why. Because think about the story. They ate the fruit from the tree of knowledge. First of all, we don't know that it was an apple. It just says a forbidden fruit. And most likely it was a fig or something like that, because apples don't grow over there. But they did not know they were naked until God came down and found them hiding in the bushes after they ate that fruit. And he said, "Why are you hiding in the bushes covering yourselves?" And they said, "Well, we're naked." And he said, "How you know you're naked? Did you eat that fruit?" "Well, yeah, we did it." You know what I mean? They didn't know they were naked before they ate the fruit and got that knowledge that they were naked, and they were ashamed of their nakedness. So Eve is the only chick on earth at the time. And she was perfectly created for Adam. So that's Adam's dream girl. So your dream girl walks up to you naked and says, "Hey, baby, eat this apple or this fruit or whatever," right? You're going to eat it. And I don't give a damn who you are. You're going to eat it. So that's my theory on why that happened. That's a little tongue-in-cheek. It's a little humorous, but probably there's a little truth to that as well. The last thing I want to talk about really quickly before we do shout-outs and wrap the show up, because we're running low on time, is I want you to go back to that scenario really quickly that I talked about where there's some sort of catastrophe and the world is ending and there's only a handful of people left. In your mind, you have knowledge. You have knowledge of history. You have knowledge of things all around you. And you're going to have children. So whether you already have children or the children that you have in the future, whatever, you're going to want to pass down information to those children about the world and about things to watch out for and things that are dangerous and your histories and stuff like that. Well, you might not have access to a lot of written materials. And after a couple generations, you're really not going to have that stuff anymore. The books are going to get destroyed. They're going to, because you don't have like climate control places to keep them or anything anymore. The whole world went to crap. So you're going to be passing along those histories and those lessons to your children through stories. That's the way it always works in every ancient civilization. They would pass down knowledge in the form of stories and songs to their children. Well, think about that and think about mythologies. Think about religion. Think about folk tales and legends. It's highly possible. Old boy always says there's a nugget of truth in everything. It's highly possible that a lot of these old legends and mythologies are based on that nugget of truth, something that is real, something that happened, and people are trying to pass that information to the next generation. So they do it in the form of story because they didn't have a sophisticated method of recording all of that back then. They couldn't make a video for YouTube to tell you what happened. They couldn't do a radio show. Okay? Hell, most people couldn't even read or write back then. So there was no way other than the oral tradition to carry on that knowledge. And it's just like the game of telephone we all played in school, where you tell your neighbor something in his ear and he tells the next person something in their ear and it goes down the line and it gets exaggerated some. And then the final story will have a nugget of truth from the original, but it'll be exaggerated. Same thing here. As it goes along generations, the story changes and it morphs a little bit. But it's based on that nugget of truth. So when Old Boy says a lot of these creatures existed, a lot of these things are based on real things, I think that is the point behind it, is that when they talk about dragons, when they talk about ogres and giants and all these things, they existed at one time. That's how they were passing that knowledge along to the next generation. Think about this. If you got giants and you have ogres and you have goblins and you have all these scary things out there, all these monsters, wouldn't you pass that information along to your child? Don't you pass information along to your child today of things he needs to watch out for or she needs to watch out for when they leave the house to go to school or wherever? Don't do drugs. Stay away from this. Don't take candy from strangers. Don't go in the car with anybody you don't know. All these things. I guarantee you it was no different back then. They want to protect their children. They're going to pass that information along. Hey, if you go outside and you see a giant, stay the hell away from them because they'll eat you. Hey, if you see this minotaur-looking creature over here, you watch out for that thing. That thing's dangerous. And I think over the generations, the tales get exaggerated a little bit and they get a narrative twist to them. Because one thing a story needs is a good narrative. So you're going to kind of change things a little bit to fit a nice little story arc. So it makes the story more entertaining over time. But I think it's based on nuggets of truth. So with that being said, we have like only a couple minutes left, so I'm going to throw over to Old Boy so he can do a really quick shout out, and then we'll wrap this thing up. Go ahead, brother.
Thank you, brother. I just want everybody to thank everybody who listens to us on Parax Radio every Sunday night. Thank you for following us on YouTube. Keep following James Hershey on YouTube so you can listen to all the shows we puts on. Subscribe. Check out our store. We have, shirts and covert mask and blankets and all the cool stuff. He'll tell you where to go. So I hope you guys check out my wedding. It's on there. I have 2 videos because one kind of got messed up. The other one's there. So, and there's supposed to be other video too, but we have 2 videos right now on my Facebook page. I've shared it on James's page too. If you guys want to check out my wedding, it's a Gothic pagan wedding. So you guys will, it was right when the sun was going to set because it was on Halloween. So I hope you guys enjoy that. The holidays are coming, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's. So I hope you guys are getting ready for that. So have a good night. Misfits, Sugar Ladies, Monster Hunters, Demon Lovers, and blessed be. Love you.
The YouTube channel is youtube.com/James Hershey Jr. That's where everything is. You've got every episode of Staring, every episode of Tales. You've got paranormal news. You've got video game stuff. You've got all kinds of stuff there. Tons of fun, 100% free. Go subscribe and enjoy it. The merchandise store is teespring.com/stores/staring into the abyss. That's teespring.com, teespring.com/store with an S on the end /staring into the abyss. That is where all of the merch is. All kinds of cool stuff there. If you want to support the show, that's a great way. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for listening. Thank you all for all your support. We greatly appreciate you, and we really enjoy doing this every week for you. So with that being said, I will catch you on the next one. Until we speak to you again, love many, trust few, and do harm to none. God loves you, and so do we. Bye-bye.